Be strong.
Good afternoon.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. This
It
is
feels-
very weird, isn't it?
It feels like a whole week since we last spoke.
It doesn't, but yes.
No, I know it hasn't been. So it is a bit odd because we have new equipment
Oh,
today.
we're all flash now. Look at us.
Look at us with our podcast microphones and things.
Headphones.
So we're both got our hands on our hips going, don't touch the desk, don't touch the thing because the microphone picks up everything that you do.
I know we can't fiddle, no fiddling here, people.
No, poor dog has been banished to the
Hallway with the dog chew.
with a chew because we could even hear the chew. I have very very perceptive hearing, don't I, Zoe?
Perceptive or sensitive and annoying. I don't know which word you'd use.
All of the above. I don't know why I made that noise then, but anyway.
Good cackle.
So we this week were planning to have a guest, and unfortunately Shanice can't make it. She's not very well. So firstly, get well to Shanice.
Get well, Shanice.
And we do hope to have her on a future episode. I know how desperate she is to talk to us. So we'll be looking
I heard
forward
that
to
she was quite shy and retiring and never speaks.
terribly shy. Terribly shy. But we did still want to have this episode, which is about Transgender Awareness Week.
Yep.
And also today is
International Trans Day of Remembrance.
Yeah. So we should just say we are not experts.
In any shape or format.
No, we're not. However, we are allies, I think is a word that we would use.
Yeah.
And we aim in these podcasts to be funny, but we also aim to be informative. And we hope that this episode will just give you a bit more information. But please, if we do get things wrong, take it in the vein that actually what we're trying to do is raise awareness and do good.
It's meant with the best, we say
absolutely.
it with the best format,
Absolutely.
don't we?
And having spoken to Shanice, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but just talking about it is the main aim of this. Really.
Yeah.
So,
I'll just throw a fact in. Factoid coming up.
Okay.
So because of it being the International Trans Day of Remembrance, I thought it was important to get some facts and figures together. So it's slightly, well, it is depressing, but by November this year, there will have been 350 transgender people, and mostly trans women of colour, who've been murdered worldwide, which is the highest since 2013, which is why this day is so important, really.
Yeah.
Wowzers. Yeah, I know, it's quite a lot, isn't it?
You do like to collect a factoid, I know. I'm sure you will be gracing us with some more factoids throughout today. But I guess probably a lot of our listeners will not necessarily have met anybody that's transgender.
No.
May not.
Or not knowingly.
Or not knowingly, yeah. May not be aware of the right things to say or how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I think we want to talk about some of those sort of things because I think...
Yeah, I think so. It's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think we've, just doing the research for this, we've learned things, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say the reason that I was really keen to get Shanice on is that, I've known her for a number of years, and what always I'm struck by is just her enthusiasm for educating people and helping, more people become allies, become knowledgeable, and to support the transgender community. But also her ability to kind of make it really simple for people to understand, and she has a wicked sense of humour, which I think makes it easier for people to engage with and learn, and do it in a way that, you know, people aren't, you know, just tiptoeing around because they're afraid.
Yeah.
So I think, I guess there are a lot of things that are misunderstood, Zoe, and I know we were talking about this before we started the recording, which was about really what
vocabulary, isn't it?
Yeah, and what does transgender mean?
Yeah.
So you were saying some things to me earlier.
Yeah. So transgender, I think people sort of tie it around sex and sexual orientation and things like that. And actually, being a trans person is about their gender identity rather than their sexual identity. So it's not the same as sex. So, you know, on your birth certificate it says boy, on mine it says girl, and we present as male and female. But actually, somebody who's transgender, it might say boy on their birth certificate, but they want to present, or they feel female, so therefore it's not matching how they feel. And then another word that's used quite often is transitioning, and I thought I had a grasp on what transitioning was, but actually looking at it, it's a much wider thing, and it's a social, physical and legal changes, and like you and I can do things, it varies individual to individual depending on their preference. So for example, so they can live according to their gender identity, so they can dress and present to the world in a way that matches their identity, and then they can choose to be referred to by their chosen names. They can, you know, lots of times people change their names to be more fitting with how they feel. And then also legally, they can have their passport changed, they can have a driving license changed, and they can change their birth certificate, which I didn't realise that they could do that, which is great. But they might choose not to do that, or they might, you know, depends on how they feel about things. And then obviously the physical thing, which I think a lot of people sort of default to, in our ignorant minds, it's more tied up with that. But that's changing their body to be correspondence with their gender identity. So, and that could be hormone, medication, voice therapy, and sometimes surgery. So that's, you know, it's a personal preference to how they want to feel and how they want to present.
And I think it's fair to say that there's a bit of a misunderstanding, isn't there, with So I think probably that's an area that you say is people's default thought, is that everybody that is transgender will always have surgery, and it absolutely isn't the case.
No.
And I think what you're just describing there is what a broad spectrum being transgender is, and how that might appear to people physically, how they present to other people. But I think one of the things that I kind of get, I guess I don't understand, is why people would ask questions about people's physical changes, very personal changes, when we wouldn't do that normally. You know, if you and I had a conversation and we met each other, we wouldn't have a conversation about, you know, really personal things.
Bobs. No,
we wouldn't.
No.
And I think, you know, it's the last thing somebody wants to be the first question is about those things. So I think the one thing that I always get is being really respectful of people that are transitioning or on a journey, wherever they might be in that journey at the beginning, or, you know, they've transitioned some time ago, is just think about, if that was you, what sort of questions would you want people to ask? I think things like trying to understand how they want to be referred to, what titles they prefer, what pronouns they want to use. And, you know, don't assume that because somebody has changed their gender identity that they want to talk about it. Because for some people, moving into a new gender, or the gender that they are born with, and it is quite a change physically, maybe on appearance, is that they don't want to be referred to their previous gender, or and I'm not, and I'm, this is where I'm probably, I could really do with Shanice being here, because, you know, we're very conscious not to say the wrong things. I think the point is, be respectful, and if you're not sure, ask the individual.
And I think that the people, and I think that's not a bad rule to take into life anyway, is it, really?
No.
You know, if you're not sure of something, then ask. And you can be respectful when you're asking. You don't have to ask in a
But we are naturally
way.
Well, we are inquisitive as human beings, aren't we? You know,
Yeah.
we like to gossip. We like to find out about things. We like to ask lots of questions. But I
Yeah.
think if you know you think you know, you shouldn't assume that you know anything. And I think you should just go with whatever that person feels comfortable with, especially when you've met somebody for the first time. I kind of wince to think that people would have, you know, really personal and interrogative conversations with people on first meeting.
Yeah.
So
because you wouldn't do it to somebody else, would you?
no, you wouldn't. And you know, that isn't also to say that people are at fault by doing that. I think we are conditioned to, from the way that we've grown up and the way that we've been taught, or you know, what's been acceptable, not acceptable, blah blah, and all that. Ultimately, we should view every individual as a person,
Yeah, for sure.
regardless of difference, and there
Yeah.
are many differences that they could be. But you know, let's just be a little bit more understanding and respectful that being different doesn't mean that you should tolerate prejudice or people asking you lots of questions.
No, I agree.
That was quite a long monologue.
That was. It's always good to have a monologue. It's always good.
You know, I'm pretty passionate about all this stuff, so
Yeah, but that's good. You need somebody to be passionate about it. I think it's just you know, having an idea of the subject, isn't it? I think ignorance is not always bliss.
It absolutely is not,
and actually can cause pain to other people. And I don't think anybody ever really wants to actually hurt somebody else's feelings. You would, you know, try.
Well,
not
you would
to do
hope not.
things.
But sadly, there are people that do, and people that have their idealist mind about what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'd struggle with that kind of way of thinking. I think treat people as individuals, regardless of difference, is a really good starting point.
Yeah.
And open your mind to learn about other people, because your life will be more enriched.
Yeah, more colourful. Yeah, for sure.
So we've got a question, haven't we, that's come in about this. Have you got it to hand?
I don't.
Expecting me to do it?
I was expecting you to do it, but I can get it. That's not a problem at all. And I can do it, I think, without making any noise on your
unlike me, that's just
machine
everything off the table. Before you get to that question, there was just one other point, which is probably one for discussion or debate, and welcome people's thoughts. Is when we're talking about the LGBT community, I think the L, the G, and the B are. Oh, is that the
That's right. No, keep going.
Oh,
yeah, just keep going.
Okay,
keep going. I'm trying to. I'm giving him literally. I'm feeding him a crumb of a biscuit at a time. Just try and keep him quiet.
The L, the G, and the B of the community is very much related to sexual orientation and who you're attracted to. And there's some discussion and debate around where the T bit fits into that. And for some people, it doesn't. But it's more of a kind of community that they feel safe in. And for some other people, they don't feel that it is appropriate because the L, the G, and the B are linked to, which is why we then got it extended into LGBTQ plus IA. And there's quite broader. But I think if you're not sure, when you see these things, is to ask people, or to, Google and Wikipedia are amazing reference points sometimes for those sort of things if you're not sure. So I just wanted to add that bit in.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Have we bided enough time to find the question?
I've got the question. Yes, I've got it here in front of me.
You're so clever.
I know. Just a little bit of side point. My fingers are so slimy now from this dog. It's disgusting. Anyway, I've got a question.
Thanks for sharing.
I like to share. I've got to suffer this slime, then so have you. So the question is, recently, America's first transgender state senator and first non-binary politician were victorious in the November 3rd election.
Hurrah.
It's amazing. Hurrah, hurrah. What needs to change in the UK society for our election process to return similar success?
Wowzers. We were a bit like, oh, okay, thanks for that.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. Are you going to ask me that question?
I'll ask you that question.
I think, again, we were talking earlier, we always have a little preamble before we come
on. And then I think, we should have said that on the podcast.
Yeah, then we kind of think we should have been recording at this point and gathering all this stuff. I think one of the things for me, is role models.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, I think we've made amazing progress in terms of visibility for
LGBT? No,
L-
LGB.
LG. Well, LG, I would say probably. I'd question B because I think
Yeah.
B is probably one that we probably know less about, or we talk less about, or there
Yeah.
are less role
Just to
models.
clarify,
Potentially.
it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans.
transgender. Yeah.
So we're using abbreviations and we shouldn't do.
Yes, we shouldn't. Do apologise. That's because we work at a university.
They like
We do it a lot at
Yeah.
university.
The bank does it as well. I think most people do it.
Yeah, in corporate backgrounds. So I think, but we were googling, weren't we?
Yeah.
What's very
It's really interesting.
what's
really
really,
interesting.
So you say what you found out in terms of
My fact for the. Oh, I'm full of them today.
you are full of facts.
I'm not sure any of them are useful, but so obviously in America they've now got this non-binary politician who's been elected, and actually then I thought, well, who is visible? You know, why is America a little bit further forward in this type of thought process and all that side of things? So I googled top 10 transgender role models, and the top 10 transgender role models that it came up with were all American, pretty much. I think there was a couple that weren't, which I'll mention in a minute. But yeah, so, and all these people are glamorous. So you've got Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black. So she's the first openly transgender actress nominated for an Emmy, and she's appeared on the cover of Time magazine. You've got another lady who's a model, and she was the first transgender woman on the cover of Vogue.
Wow.
And they're all, they're all, you know, very high profile females. There are some men on there, but it was mainly female transgender women that were on it. But yeah, very visible, obviously on the front covers of magazines, on the television, on the catwalk, in, you know, all different types of lines of work. And I thought, well, that's really interesting, but they're all American. So little old me, I'll get on my little UK. So I changed the question just to have UK on it. And that was quite illuminating, and I suspect that would help answer Ian's question. So the top transgender people that it came up with on my chart on when I googled was Lauren Hans, which she's an antique expert.
Okay, yeah.
So I think most people will know her from when she was a child. She was went by the name of James. She had a very curly blonde hair and was on an antique show. So you've got Lauren, then you've got Nadia, who won Big Brother.
Who's actually Portuguese, but lives in the UK.
Yeah. She used to work for the bank. And then you've got Hayley Cropper, who's not even a real person, from Coronation Street. And I thought that is very interesting, isn't it?
So we are deviating a little bit, but should we just talk about that? Because Zoe and I, because we also had a discussion about, we didn't understand why a non-transgender person would play a transgender part in a soap opera, and I think that kind of says a lot. You know, I think things are changing, but that's what I don't know what message that gives, and it doesn't say that we, you know, like maybe in the States we have visible, talented actresses and actors
who are openly transgender,
that can play those parts. And maybe there's an element of people who are transgender, who are actors and actresses who don't want to be recognised as transgender in those roles. Maybe.
That's got to be the way.
Case. And this goes back to the point around, we shouldn't make assumptions that because people are trans that they want to be openly.
No, but then if you thought it was going to affect your career prospects or your job, then you probably wouldn't.
Well, and I think you know, it's only really, I would say, in the last 10, 15 years that being openly gay probably hasn't had as much of an impact on career and how people view you. So you know, it is very much a journey. Anyway,
I've got another point just on that.
Okay, yeah.
So I was looking into it, and there's a lady called Caroline Page who's in the RAF, and she was a navigator for the RAF. And whilst I was looking at that, it said that it was only in the year 2000, so what, 20 years ago, that the ban on gay and bisexual people was lifted in the military. But transgender people wasn't lifted till 2014.
14.
Yeah.
Just 6 years ago.
Yeah. So it is a relatively...
Did you find that, was that on the BBC this week?
Yeah.
If you look on some of the, there is an LGBT category on BBC News, which I always look at on the app. It was a really interesting thing to read in terms of, how much, how difficult it was in the military at that time, and being accepted, but also being really successful, a very high rank. I met a BA pilot who did some work with a company that I worked with before, who had transitioned and flew jumbo jets. She talked about the impact of the transition, and people thinking because she had, changed her gender identity, that suddenly meant that she couldn't fly jumbo jets, even though she'd done it for 30 years before that.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It was fascinating. I mean, she was incredible, and anybody who anybody who flies a jumbo jet, I think
drives.
But you have to learn and train for hours and hours and hours to do that. How suddenly, because you've changed how you present yourself to the world, that means that should change, seems utterly ridiculous to me.
Well, it's absolutely bonkers.
So going back to our questione, I think role models is a challenge for sure in the UK.
Yeah.
We don't have any clear and very prominent role models in public office, in in positions of authority or whatever it might be, either locally or nationally. So that's definitely got to change.
And I think if we could get more people to feel safe and confident to disclose, then that would be the different point.
Yeah, because people don't feel safe still. I think they don't feel safe in being themselves and being open and in public in, wherever they might be living, or, they might live in a slightly less accepting part of the UK than, I always think we're pretty lucky in this part of the world, but who knows?
No.
And I'm not sure, I always think, I don't know, maybe the stories that are told and are sensationalized or trivialized, or they highlight bad things. They highlight when bad things happen for transgender people.
But news always goes for the negative, doesn't it? You've got other people like Shanice and people who are trying to trailblaze, who are trying to raise awareness, and with all these different places of if we can keep having conversations and just talking about it, then things will start to get better, I think.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, I agree. And if you're listening, can't speak.
Listening.
I've turned into. I was going to say I've turned into Sean Connery. That wouldn't be an appropriate thing to say, would it? Really, at the moment.
Not be appropriate. Poor child.
Soz.
That was sad.
Very sad. Very sad. Yeah. So shall we? We've got some kind of typically topical transgender top tips maybe this week, haven't we? Yeah. So we'll go. Let's do those.
Okay.
How are we doing for time?
Well, for some reason my clock has stopped working, so I have no idea. 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Well, we've actually got less than 10 minutes because I started it after we'd started. But
okay, fine.
Okay. So top tips. Number 1 is to not let your dog walk on the table. Hang on.
If only you could see this. The dog has decided to get on the table with Zoe while she's recording.
Always so sorry.
Such fun.
Anyway, oh no, it's shaking it. Anyway, so top tip. So topic is if you make a mistake, then apologise. I think this is a life tip, but particularly if you were talking to somebody who's transgender and you referred to, if you'd known them in their previous name or pronoun, then just apologise if you've got it wrong. They would rather you just apologise, and rather than trying to make it, you probably dig yourself into a 50-foot hole if you don't do that. And if you don't know somebody's pronoun, then ask. But also what you might find now is more and more people are putting it on their emails and contact details and things like that. So you'll see it more on, I think I've noticed it more on Instagram recently and stuff like that. I'm so sorry. people won't mind Adrian's having an absolute Connery.
I'm not. I'm
so
smiling.
sorry, I'm so
smiling
sorry.
through. It's all right. He's not hacking up his dog chew right now. So we're all good. We're all good. Bless him.
Digestive biscuit he's gnawing into.
So oh god, are you going to do your second one, or shall I?
And you can do yours. Do yours. It's fine.
Yeah. So mine would be, and as we know, she couldn't be with us today. But if you are on Instagram, is to follow Twirly Girl with a T, which is Shanice's Instagram page, where she shares her fabulous hair tips for those people who've got curly hair. She has amazing hair.
Her hair is amazing.
Amazing hair. But I don't think we should tell her husband how much she probably spends on product, because I think it's probably quite a lot. Yeah.
I think it is. But if you have got curly hair, or you want your hair to be better behaved curly, that is definitely the place to get all the top tips.
Amazing. And
it's funny.
It's hilarious, as she is hilarious. But what also she does is she does some great transgender awareness tips, and she does a weekly kind of knowledge thing, which is fantastic. And she's building a really big following on Instagram. And what, as we've talked about, and what the honesty that she portrays, and she's had a lovely husband on there as well, who's been talking about stuff. It's just so enlightening, entertaining. If you want to be educated, it's a good place to go. It is, because she'll do a far better job than us. Yeah, but also she'll drip feed is a drip feed, so it's good, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's a good option. And then my other typically topical top tip is a top tip given to me by Karen this week, and Jamie actually, is if you are making a cake or some such other thing. Are we going off piece now? Yeah, we're going off piece. I thought we've got to have a less topically topical top tip. Is if you're making something with an egg and you have to break the shell, and then the bit of shell always falls in, doesn't it? Oh, what a pain, la la la. If you get the half of the egg shell that hasn't broken, then you can scoop that piece out. The broken piece out will stick to the bit that has fallen into your yucky slimy egg. Okay, that's my top tip. She's stalling a little bit there because the dog is eating her fingers. It's absolutely disgusting. So if you've got an egg that is like having your fingers in a dog's mouth, I was thinking, my fingers feel like they're manhandling. But this is a real life podcast, right? So this is what happens. This is what happens in our life. She's worried that I won't speak to her for a week because we've made little sounds. I do feel I need to chill out quite a bit, really. as you tell me regularly, don't you? Take a deep breath and out. Everybody feels better now. Everybody feels better. Do you, I've done quite a bit of that this week. I found this week a bit stressy, I think. What? Really? I hadn't noticed. Why is that, do you think? Well, I think looking at my magnolia walls in my office room has probably not been good for me. And my running hasn't been particularly great this week. So I think I've got a week on holiday next week, and I'm really looking for... I think people just need to make sure they've got time away from work. I think because you're working from home, I think we assume that's... It's important to have a distinction between the rooms that you're using. You always say this to me. So if you're in a room that you sleep in and then you work in, then you really need to have that separation time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. God, you're so wise. Oh, I'm so wise. Do you apply it? Do you apply it all to your own life? My own life is a chaotic girl. No, it's not. You're always very good at giving out advice. Just not. I listen. Well, let's just leave it at that. We don't need to say. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Yeah, let's leave it at that. So, so thank you for your knowledge and your learning. You're very welcome. We're really. I'm also very kindly lent you the dog slobber noises, so I'm so sorry about that. Oh, it's made my evening. And have a drink. Once again, best wishes to Shanice, and we very much hope that we'll be able to have a conversation with her really soon and get well. And hopefully people have found this just a little bit of information. Would you let us know? So you can contact us, as always. Zoe always just looks at me as if to say, oh, here we go. You can't remember. So email on AtoZee&back @gmail.com, Twitter at AtoZee&back, and also on Facebook and Instagram now. Blimey. Each week we're adding something extra. We're adding a new social media platform. AtoZee&back.
So I think the most popular ones seem to be Facebook and Instagram. So feel free to give us a follow, send us messages.
Yeah.
It
also,
really makes things interesting when people sort of send us messages.
It does. So we'd like your views of what you've heard today, and
whether you like our microphones,
whether you like the microphones or the dog slobber, and we'd like to hear from you what you thought, your opinions. We'd like questions, topics for the future. But also, if you like what we're doing, we'd love you to leave us a review, which you can do on Facebook or on Podchaser. And you can find all of the places to listen to our podcast
previous
on
podcasts.
our Instagram page. Yes, on our little link tree, which is our new latest toy. Well, no, these microphones are the latest toy.
Oh, these are definitely the newest one. People will post a picture of us. We do look very,
almost look like we know what we're doing. So thank you very much for listening, as always.
Thank you.
We hope you have a great week, and we'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.